Welcome to Write Your Book in a Flash with Dan Janal, the only podcast where you'll learn how successful people just like you have grown their businesses, expanded their influence, and made more money by writing a book. On each episode, you'll learn the inside secrets to help you create a book that can serve as a powerful marketing tool to skyrocket your business. I'm your host, Dan Janal. I help thought leaders, business executives, and entrepreneurs write their books. To find out more, go to writeyourbookinaflash.com. Welcome, everyone. I'm delighted to welcome today's guest, Nancy Juetten. How are you, Nancy?
I'm good. Thank you. How are you?
Doing great. Thanks. Nancy, I've known you for well more than a decade, but you might be new to some people who are listening today. So tell us what you do and how you came to do what you do.
Well, I am the author of the Bye Bye Boring Bio workbook that helps speakers, experts, and authors transform their boring bios from wallpaper to wow to attract clients, connections, and cash now. And I started doing this in the aftermath of the Great Recession.
Why? What led you to this?
Well, it was a funny thing. I owned a public relations agency at that time, and I was representing large companies that wanted to be seen, heard, and celebrated in the media. And when the Great Recession happened, it seemed like the whole thing fell apart in a weekend because so many businesses fell apart, and my business did too, because PR didn't seem to be the high priority at that time. It seemed to be, how can I hold on to my staff and my business for dear life? And that was kind of my reality. And so on a dare from a friend, we had just bought a new house. We couldn't sell the house we left. We had this huge mortgage and no deep pockets or rich relatives. And I'm thinking to myself, how are we going to pay the mortgage in this dire time? And a friend of mine said, I dare you to write a book on how to make your bio brilliant, because you're brilliant at that. And it just might be the ticket you need to get out of this mess you find yourself in. And I didn't really have anything better to do. So I took everything I knew about positioning top executives to be media savvy and media ready. And I wrote a book on how solopreneurs and consultants and authors and experts could do the same, using all of my templates, tools, interview questions, everything that I'd ever done as a PR person. And I wrote it in 3 weeks because I really needed to figure out a way to create a product that would save my bacon at the precise time I needed to bring it home. And this is truly what happened. I had a very small newsletter list of maybe 1,085 names. I wrote a simple, heartfelt message. Are you struggling with attracting clients as you hang out your shingle in these challenging times? I've written a book that I think will help you. Why don't you go buy it? And that was it. And then I went and walked the dog. And a couple hours later, when I came back to my computer, I couldn't believe my eyes. It was like sitting in front of a slot machine at Las Vegas. You have an order, you have an order, you have an order. I couldn't believe it. I asked my husband to come check it out. He said, what is that? And we laughed. I said, it's money in the shopping cart. And so the bottom line is I found a solution to an urgent problem that needed an answer. And I found an audience very quickly. And that book put me on a path to guide thousands and thousands of people to transform their bios from boring to brilliant and door opening. And then I built a whole empire around it.
Fantastic. That's a great story, and that'll inspire a lot of people to say, yes, a book can really change my life. And you talk about building an empire. I'm so glad you brought that up, because you've been riding this pony for well more than a decade at least, and it has many tentacles. It's not just a book or a workbook anymore. Tell us about how you've branched that one idea into literally an empire.
Well, thank you. Well, first there's this concept of, Goldilocks and the three bears, and she goes to the, into the cottage, and she sees 3 bowls of porridge. This one's too hot. This one's too cold. This one's just right. I learned this from a fellow colleague of ours, Henry DeVries, that we should have offers that are, just right for people's preferences. So I was inspired to create leveraged group programs to help people broadcast their brilliance using podcast guesting and other virtual avenues to raise their voice and make their impact. And then I was called to create a private mentoring program to work very closely with the jewel box of highly motivated clients that, for whatever reason, reject working in a group scenario and want it to be all about them. So this is my Goldilocks model, where I have a very affordable Bye Boring Bio workbook you can buy a la carte. I have a leverage group program that allows me to work in intimate groups to help people get brilliant outcomes. And then I have a way to work at a premium level with a jewel box of amazing clients that really want to link arms and work together. And with those three primary offerings, I've been able to create a very nice lifestyle for myself and a good income and create great success stories for clients around the world.
Great. In addition to the different deliverable methods that you have in terms of groups or solos, whatever, you also deal with people's different modalities in terms of buying and teaching. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Well, when I first created the Bye Boring Bio workbook in 2009, it was 100% text. There were no audios, there were no videos. And when I think back to what it was like 10 years ago, I didn't want to be on camera and I didn't want to be speaking up because I self-identified as a writer. But it was, again, Henry DeVries, our mutual friend, who said to me, your success will be amplified if you get over your fear of speaking and start speaking up on live and virtual platforms. If you're happy with one arm of your success tied behind your back just as a writer, I'm happy for you. But if you're ready to overcome whatever your limitations are, I think you're going to find that your upside will be dramatically greater. And so here was another dare from a dear friend who said, get your act together and start speaking and leading and teaching and whatnot. And so for the 2020 version, there's 11 videos where I did deep dive interviews with experts about how to make the bio for the back of your book brilliant to turn browsers into buyers, and how to create an irresistible lead magnet with a deep dive interview with Cloris Kiley, the Beyond Influencer Marketing author. I did 11 deep dive interviews with experts that would add even more value and a deeper experience for any workbook user. And then I added additional audio files as well. And then there's a workbook within the workbook that gives people the chance to dog ear the pages and learn how to pitch and learn how to do what needs to be done. So by somehow overcoming my own fears around audio, video, etc., I decided to make the 2020 version incredibly robust to appeal to every learning style, because it is also a mechanism so those who use the workbook can get to know, like, and trust me in multiple ways, because we all know that the workbook is just the beginning of how someone might want to do business with me. If they hear, see, and appreciate how I help through interviews and other trainings, they're going to know straight away if I'm the one that they want to go forward with to go deeper in their work. So I think we all do ourselves a favor to make our books and workbooks interactive. And of course, lead generators for us, because one of the things that authors forget to do is to say, if you'd like to learn more about how to do business with me, download my ABC, whatever it is. I mean, if we could just get everybody that buys your book to download some way to get some deeper training, you're going to grow your list and you're going to have the opportunity to go deeper with that author. And then some of those new inquiries will turn into conversations that will turn into cash.
Fantastic. That you really showed how the bio can help monetize, or why it should. Let's take a step back, because most bios are boring. So I think you really hit the nail on the head with the Bye Boring Bio. I mean, it's a great title. And most people tune out on bios. I mean, when I listen to a podcast, I immediately zoom ahead 3 minutes because I don't want to hear where they went to school or whatever. Get me to the meat, because the bios are so boring. So what is your secret sauce? And I don't want to give you away all of your training on here, because we only have a minute or two left for this podcast. But why would people want to change their normal boring bio into something else? And what makes your method turn a boring bio into something that's transformational?
Well, number one, I don't think anyone gets out of the bed in the morning and says, boy, I can't wait to read my boring bio. And a host of a podcast or someone who has the door to open that could bring you to thousands of listeners, they don't want to read it either. So my number one suggestion is, why don't you write something that's easy to hear and that says something about what's in it for you? Because when you lead with what's in it for your ideal client, you grab their attention at hello. And when you lead all about yourself, that's why people fast forward. We could start a revolution right now with people saying, when you listen to what Nancy has to say, you're going to learn 5 things that are going to help you transform your boring bio into a client attraction magnet. And let's start right now. What a great way to start a podcast versus Nancy went to school and she did this and she did that. Nobody cares. So
that's perfect.
That would be one thing. And then the other thing is, I sometimes say that bios should open big doors instead of invite a snore. So don't be afraid to turn a phrase and make people wink and grin if that's on brand for you, because I am the queen of this sassy soundbite and they come out of me like music. If you have that gift, let that gift be expressed in the way you show up in your bio, because it creates rapport right away. And when you're in a conversation, isn't that what it's all about? Whether you're on a podcast or talking about how to do new business with someone who can't wait to sit at your feet.
Fantastic. Nancy, you've given us so much great information about why we should turn our boring bio into a lead generation magnet that really attracts people. Tell us, who is your ideal client and how can they get in touch with you?
My ideal client is speakers, experts, and authors who are benched because of recent events and want to raise their voice and make their impact by speaking up virtually. And how they can get in touch, the Bye Bye Boring Bio workbook debuted in September of 2020 to rave reviews, but the preview went Amazon #1 bestseller status in 4 categories in a single afternoon. And this is a gift that I will gladly share with you that will help you get media ready, media savvy, and on message to wow your hosts before and after every broadcast. And Dan is going to share a link to it in the show notes. You should just run, don't walk, and download it, because you will be so transformed for having read these 26 pages of awesomeness.
Fantastic. And I can guarantee that those 26 pages, you might say, only 26 pages, they'll keep you busy for a while, but you'll have a quick start to getting your bio done, and it's a complete done for you. You'll definitely walk away with a bio that will attract people instead of repel people. Nancy, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening to Write Your Book in a Flash with Dan Janal, the only podcast that shows you exactly how people just like you have built their businesses by writing a book. If you'd like to write your book but don't know where to start, you can find great information at writeyourbookinaflash.com. Thanks again for listening. We'll be back next week with another insightful interview to help you become a top business leader.